The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Thursday, June 25th, and I'm Kyle Dreyfus-Wells, CEO of the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Thank you very much. We are honored to serve as a partner on today's forum and introduce the 2026 State of the Great Lakes. This year, we are also celebrating the nation's 250th birthday. Throughout 2026, and in partnership with the America 250 Ohio Commission, the City Club will host conversations to commemorate this moment. This month, we are exploring Ohio's natural resources, Lake Erie, our rivers, dozens of state parks, and our national park. For more than 50 years, the Sewer District has protected Lake Erie and its tributaries by treating wastewater, reducing combined sewer overflow, and addressing flooding, erosion, and water quality problems. These efforts continue to improve and protect the health of Lake Erie, the source of drinking water for millions, as well as an invaluable ecological resource and the economic driver of our region. With issues like emerging contaminants and water scarcity on the rise, this is both an urgent need and an economic opportunity to create solutions that can be deployed in the Great Lakes and adopted around the world. The Cleveland Water Alliance forges cross-sector partnerships to accelerate these innovations by connecting our region's utilities, universities, government agencies, and manufacturing leaders. CWA turns concentrated expertise and critical need into world-changing industry. President and CEO Brian Stubbs was appointed to lead the Cleveland Water Alliance shortly after its inception, growing the organization into a renowned technology catalyst. He frequently represents all of us and the Great Lakes on the global stage, bridging partnerships across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Beyond his nonprofit leadership, Brian is the managing partner of the Freshwater Innovation Fund, a $25 million venture capital vehicle dedicated to scaling water tech startups. And as a founding member of the Cleveland Water Alliance, the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District is privileged to partner with Brian and his team. And moderating today's conversation is Sally C. Gutierrez, former senior advisor of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Sally completed her service at the end of 2023 after almost 24 years of service. And yes, thank you, Sally. And during her time at EPA, she was a senior advisor for water in the Center for Environmental Solutions and Emergency Response in Cincinnati. And as a hydrologist, she has significant experience in the water industry worldwide. So today we will hear about the most valuable resource of the 21st century and what it means for the future of our region. And as a reminder to our live stream audience, if you have a question during the Q&A portion of the forum, you can text it to 330-541-5794. I'm sure everybody's got it in their contacts. And the City Club staff will try to work it into the program. So now, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Brian Stubbs and Sally Gutierrez.
Thank you. All right. Is the mic working? Okay, great. So first of all, I do want to thank the City Club of Cleveland for their support and for organizing just this amazing gathering here of all of you experts, either early on or already experts. So as she said, you know that I'm retired from the US EPA from the research lab in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I spent many, many years there overseeing research and technology development. And it was a real honor for me to work alongside of what I can characterize as the best scientists, not only in the country, but across the globe. They were just amazing in terms of the technologies that they developed, and also, I think, importantly, they were available whenever we had emergency issues come up. For example, the problem that we had in Toledo, Ohio, the problem that we had in Flint, Michigan. Those scientists there in Cincinnati were deployed to help to not only get those problems resolved, but to bring all of the scientific expertise to bear on these very, very serious public health issues. So with that, I want to welcome Brian
No,
to here.
Sally, thank you, and thanks for taking that moment just to recognize some of our friends at the federal EPA, what they do day in and day out with not a lot of glory.
Yes, very
So,
much
thank you.
so, very much so. So while I was there, we did help a lot of industries and utilities try to bring back and be in compliance with their federal requirements. And so a lot of it had to do with, kind of trying to maneuver through that. But here, we're here to have a conversation on something maybe a little bit different, and that is, how are we finding technologies? How are we scaling technologies? How are we really, really bringing about new ways to solve these very, very serious problems? So when you say water economy, Brian, what does that really mean?
How much time do you have? No. So when we talk about the water economy, the blue economy, it's based on a pretty simple but powerful idea, starting with clean water, very important resource, but it's also an economic resource. And starting there, I always find ways to credit board members, and last year's State of the Great Lakes was presented by Chris Winslow from Ohio Sea Grant, and he tied that to you can't have a healthy economy without a healthy environment, in this case, clean water. So starting there, but when we come into the office day in, day out, when we think through what the water economy is, what the blue economy is, I think it's sometimes helpful to frame it maybe a little more simply, and I use like bookends. On one bookend is this idea or concept of large water users. Some examples of that would be, of course, Kyle and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. I first and foremost don't think we give credit to our utilities. Cleveland Water's in the house, Avon Lake Regional Water's in the house. These are economic drivers in our region. We give so much attention to energy utilities. It's time that we start realizing that our water utilities actually drive a lot of economic growth. Then from there, we look at manufacturing. What's the number one chemical input in manufacturing?
Water.
H2O. I was at the American Chemical Society conference, and it was all these National Science Foundation. We're all kind of nerdy, and somebody got up and said that, and everybody's like, oh yeah, they'd kind of forgotten about that. So manufacturing, you look at, battery storage, water intensive, semiconductor, water intensive, the third rail right now, data centers, somewhat water intensive, but more on the energy side. All of our manufacturers here, they use a lot of water, and it's getting more specialized, and the things that we're manufacturing are requiring more and more water at a time period where water is stressed globally, as economists say, at an increasing rate. So bookend over here, water-enabled industry, water-enabled partners, those that use a lot of water. These are folks who are in need of new technologies, new innovations, how can they work smarter, faster, better. On the other bookend is water, what we call water solutions. And these are all the technology companies. That's the Cleveland Water Alliance's bread and butter. These are all the solutions that suddenly there's a ripe market for. And we assist in bringing these technologies to all of these large water users, as well as others. And then, between those bookends, Sally, is like, various, shades of gray. But for us, it starts with the fact that water underpins our economy. And, you think of the Great Lakes region, as a gross regional product, we're $6 trillion. How much of that $6 trillion is made possible because of water? And let's start there when we talk about the blue economy.
So $6 trillion, that's not some trivial number there. And, when we think about the Great Lakes, it constitutes 21% of the globe's freshwater resources, right? 21%, those that are surface. So we're sitting on one of the most extraordinary water assets on the planet. Do you think that the region really appreciates that and understands that?
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple people here who are in the same line. We're not there yet, but I think, look, the fact that, Dan mentioned to me that, and the talks earlier, that this is, the most sold out since 2019 State of the Great Lakes. So this idea of getting people to understand the role water plays in driving our society. Without clean water, do we have healthy communities? No. Do we have a robust ag community? No, and that's the #1 exporter, by the way, from Ohio. You start to think through of like how water underpins our economy. It's not a niche. It's kind of the foundation of what we're building here. So, the challenge is getting all of you and for you to talk to people about this idea of like, we need to pay more attention to water. And I mean, some like wild stories is, I still have to explain to people the engineering aspect of water. They think they come home, they turn on a faucet and water's always going to be there. And you know what? There's times, Toledo, 2014, where it wasn't there. And when you compile that with how much it drives economic growth, suddenly it's like, okay, this could be dangerous if we don't start paying more attention to it, Sally.
Absolutely. So there's real urgency here. There are a number of emerging contaminants, whether it's microplastics, whether it's PFAS, whether it's harmful algal blooms, any number of these. And, the third rail, the data centers, the water demands associated with those facilities. And I know from my days working in the federal government that, these issues can feel a little overwhelming, right? But how do you think about them?
Sure. So, with us, it's not a glass half empty. Yeah, as everybody in this room knows, there's a lot coming at us that we need to be aware of. And if you just start reading the headlines on anything today, you just kind of want to go back into your room and, get back in bed. But no, when we look at all of these problems, and this is really important, and this is the thesis of what we started building here in Cleveland, these are opportunities ripe for solutions to drive cleaner water, but also create industries, create businesses, bring in capital from outside the region in here. So, let's take, let's start with emerging contaminants and PFAS, PFOA, a hot topic. The regulatory framework isn't there yet, but we have a lot of partners out there, these water intense industry folks who are like, if you have a solution, we're game. We'll put money into this. So our job is each day roll up our sleeves and say like, okay, is there a potential innovation? And look, we scan the whole entire world, the globe, trying to find these early stage entrepreneurs, innovators, maybe somebody's onto something in France or Singapore, which, Max from our team just got back from, I think, Sunday night. And to say, like, can we tease this out? Can we bring this to market? So really, this is about, opportunity, even though it can, kind of mess with your head some days.
Yes. Just a little.
Yeah, yeah.
So there are, so when you think about it, it can mean challenges for sure, but it can mean competitive advantage. It can mean, can you say more about that? Why Ohio? Why the Great Lakes?
Oh, yeah,
Can you
yeah.
expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, this is something we talk a lot about, which is, we lived, and people in this community lived through Lake Erie being called dead. Of course, Cuyahoga River, last catching fire in '69, one of many times, and not even close to, the only one. The whole Great Lakes, the rivers were catching on fire. Out of that came this really interesting effort of universities, of companies, of researchers like your folks down in Cincinnati that really built up an ecosystem of, expertise. So, I look at this through probably too much through a data lens. How I justify this expertise is the Great Lakes region accounts for 16% of all patents in the United States. But the Great Lakes region accounts for 23% of all water tech patents in the United States. So you start to see, like, we do have expertise. We do have these amazing universities. I see, like, some of our friends from Case Western in the back of the table. Cleveland State took a table. We're working with them right now on some researchers that are young and new and some who have been around a while. So it's really about, we have the ingredients here to do something kind of special.
Yes, yes. I couldn't agree more. And so you've built something called a freshwater test bed. And for people who aren't familiar, what is that and why does it matter?
Why does it matter? Well, let's back up a notch. So, I want everybody here to understand there's two significant programs that we have invested in here in Cleveland. The first program is our Smart Lake Erie watershed. So again, let's flash forward to 2014, Toledo. We were still doing human grab samples for water quality. So imagine Bob going out on a boat, taking a sample, putting it in a vial, driving his boat back to the dock, getting into his truck, eventually getting to his lab, eventually running that analysis. So when 2014 happened, we did have some assets come in to start doing near real-time water quality monitoring, but just a teeny tiny bit. And what we do know, and no offense against some of the government workers, is that they're really good at helping us in that early R&D, but when it comes to operationalizing it, it's oftentimes like private-public partners like us. So, we said, what if we instrumentized all of Lake Erie? So we set about, first of all, building a telemetry system, which is a fancy way of saying, like, imagine your mesh Wi-Fi system at home, but we built it out of over 8,000 square miles that covers all of the Ohio portion of Lake Erie. And from that, we are able to more cost-effectively start putting in smart buoys, start putting in monitoring stations to get that data real-time, autonomous, without that person having to go out and do that sample, providing real-time data to our water quality managers. As we started going down this road, Cleveland Water came to us and said, this initial work that we're doing with support from Ohio EPA, NOAA, and EPA, really fascinating, but we need somebody who knows how to do this a little faster, quicker. They knew that we had some great partnerships with a couple of key engineering firms, one in particular, Limnotech out of Ann Arbor, and their spin out now an Ohio company, Freeboard Technologies. And we started saying, like, let's basically build a smart and connected Great Lake. So there's nothing like this in the world. This has become a global destination. We get calls every week about this. We get people coming in. This provides real-time water quality data to our water managers. It saves them money, it saves them time, it protects public health, it helps with public branding of health. And as we built that out, it's been really cool. It's also turned into the ability to test and trial new technologies. We have all the best-in-class equipment already out on this. You know, now if somebody has the next generation sensor and, you know, maybe it's a fraction of the price of the existing sensor, they can come in and test and trial that within our Smart Lake Erie watershed test bed, which leads to your question. Going back 10 years ago, 9 years ago, myself and the team, in particular myself and our Director of Innovation, E.B. Holst, kind of banging our heads against the wall saying, like, why don't we see more water tech getting into the market? There's got to be a there. It seems like it's a tiger about to roar, but you know, it was still in the pen.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, why is that? And we came up with this idea of the inability to test and trial water technology in a variety of different scenarios, in real world conditions. The water sector, like water's different every moment of every day. You know, chemistry is always changing. So if you develop a technology to deal with water, it works in the lab, oh great, you got it to work in the lab, that's all you got. As soon as you bring that out into, you know, the real world environment, things were just failing. And, you know, there's these great business case scenarios like GE Water used to try to assemble all of these and failed miserably. And, you know, they didn't do this, they didn't approach it this way. So we came up with the idea of testing and trialing, one, to get technology to the market faster, but as a competitive advantage for this region. You know, and it's become so popular that, you know, we get contacted by 300 water tech companies per year, all over the world, in Ohio, in the United States, but all over the world. Of that, we do due diligence on about 100 of them, and we deploy within our test bed between 15 or 20 of these technologies. This doesn't exist. So the question is, if you build it, will they come? Yeah, they come, but does it work? Yes. We're starting to see these technologies get into the market faster, quicker. That's making dollars and investments more possible for these companies. I'll look at, you know, even like somebody like a spin out from Case Western, you know, quick show of hands, who knows about cleaner? That's pretty good. So microplastics capturing technology at a washing machine, you know, and, you know, these engineering students from Case have raised serious money. They have a serious agreement with a major washing machine manufacturer. You know, so we always ask this question, if not but for, and we always want to try to answer that. If not but for this like system that we built here, all these great innovators, all these great researchers, we wouldn't see these technologies getting into the market. So that is why it matters. And thanks for giving me an extra minute on that.
So if we can make it a little bit more tangible for the people in the room, what does the innovation really produce? Jobs, investment, companies? And I think you've already done a little bit of that in terms of what you've said up to now.
Yeah, you know, we are at our core an economic development agency through the lens of water tech. So, you know, we do receive public dollars and we take that very seriously. We want to see that ROI be there, and it is, but those are the right questions. So, you know, I'd look at, are we attracting capital to the region? Yes, you know, for the Great Lakes region, last, 8 years, $1.3 billion in venture capital for the entire kind of Great Lakes basin for water technology. Are we seeing jobs? Absolutely. But let me give you an example of how this works and how we view economic development in this century. Because we're not fans of, let's give somebody a tax incentive, have them build a warehouse. You know, that just doesn't do it for us. You know, so good example, Avon Lake Regional Water and Korea. What do they have in common? Well, they have the Cleveland Water Alliance in common. Some really exciting efforts in Korea heard about us, and they flew in, and this was pre-pandemic, and they're just like, we want to work with you. We want to figure something out, but I'm here to make sure you're a real human and all of that. So we got all that done and taken care of. And during the pandemic, they came to me and said, okay, we have a piece of technology that is and I'm not going to ask anybody to repeat this 3 times really fast, on-site generation of hypochlorite. It's a fancy way of saying it's a type of chlorine, but it's developed through an electrochemical process in a much more benign, safe way, and at a much more cost-effective way. We want to bring it to the North American market. And we'd like to find somebody to pilot with, and we're willing to put in $6 million. This is in economic development terms, what we call foreign direct investment. These are like our core metrics. These are home runs for us. So, introduce them to Avon Lake Regional Water, a lot of like 9 and 10 p.m. Zoom calls, which was always intriguing. And we got this across the finish line where the Korean government paid for this pilot for Avon Lake Regional Water to do this. Now, besides being a piece of cool technology, it gets chemicals off of trains. I happen to think that's a good thing. It also keeps price low for the ratepayer. It holds that static. I also happen to think that's a good thing. It also mitigates supply chain issues. Hypochlorite, it's a fancy way of also saying salt. And we're mining salt from underneath Lake Erie, and that's the key ingredient in this. So we're now not sourcing something from who knows where, plant in Mexico, hypothetically. So all that's going good. We flipped the switch on that. It took a while, exciting. But then the company from Korea, TechWin, this was a spin out from LG Chem, they said, Brian, we can't manufacture these in Korea. There's just, it won't work. We need a manufacturing partner in North America. Will you find us a joint venture manufacturer? Look, it's an exciting piece of technology, but we consider this a home run because now we're talking about building manufacturing capacity, another strength that we have in this region. And from there, this becomes yet a job growth. It becomes about jobs. It becomes about innovation. It becomes about investments. So that's like the most concrete, real world. You can go see this out. I think if Rob's here, he'd probably like, don't tell everybody. I don't want a line out our door. But.
So are you moving fast enough? And do you have the capacity? I guess that's the other part too, yeah. So
that's probably been our biggest challenge, and just, I kind of want one of the takeaways to be for this community, we've turned this, and Kyle, thank you for your kind words earlier, we've turned this into a global destination. People are paying attention to what we're doing here. We're not traditionally funded, we're soft money. I'm passing the hat around every day. But yet I think our return on investment from an economic development standpoint is stronger than traditionally how we approach this. So it comes down to we can't keep up with demand. Our team can't vet. We can't deploy any more than we're deploying now with the funds that we have. So the question now becomes, does Ohio and does the Great Lakes, do we want to get serious about this? Do we want to be what Silicon Valley is for semiconductors, what Wall Street is for finance, and those are grand examples or smaller examples. This is a smart way of economic development. Are we going to take advantage of this? Because right now, eyes are on us. Eyes are on us, eyes are on the Great Lakes. It's this perfect, wonderful storm, where we're making progress, but we also are on 21% of the world's fresh surface water. Water stress is on the rise globally. It's a perfect ingredient. So, shame on us if we don't move fast enough.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I know we're running very, very low on time. When you talk about the cluster model, how does that look in practice? And what are the biggest challenges that you have with regard to that?
Well, we can keep this pretty simple. For those that don't know, cluster economic development is just, I think, a smarter, faster, let's break things and, use the Silicon Valley model, but you can't break water, so be careful. I kind of want to take this a little bit towards, how we're thinking actually through, because we have 1 minute.
Yes, I know.
The cluster works great. Don't get me wrong. If you want to have a drink or dinner over, I'm happy to talk to all of you. It was a system developed by Porter out of Harvard, and it's just a really efficient way of doing it. But What the cluster does is it brings really great coalitions, a great consortium of players. It brings us university partners, it brings us industry partners, and it brings Great Lakes partners. In our case, we're part of a National Science Foundation Innovation Engine grant called Great Lakes Renew. They're paying us $1 million a year to test and trial, technologies. And, this to us is very exciting, but the challenges are, it's like we're no longer just Ohio. We've got partnerships with Duluth and places like that. So I'm going to give you 1 minute back, so maybe we can ask about workforce.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we have enough time for the workforce. But...
We're getting the okay from the grand.
Okay, all right. Then I'll go back to this one. What about the next generation?
Yeah. Well,
the students, and especially the students here that have such great and promising futures, right? And the early career professionals. What do you think it looks like for them?
Yeah, so, first I'm grateful we have Case, we have Cleveland State with the Freshwater Institute here, a great partner in this kind of education side of things. But look, I always say when I speak to either colleges or high schoolers, if you want a job for life, go into water.
Water, absolutely.
And, Dan was mentioning to me earlier, small d democratic. I need people just out of high school. I need people with PhDs. The most recent data we have, which, albeit, it's about 5 years old and we're updating our economic numbers, is this region is creating 300 net new jobs every year in the water economy, blue economy space. That's more than biohealth. That's more than additive manufacturing. Think about that. All those get tons of attention. They get tons of money, but it's the water economy that's doing that. So when we think about workforce, we have some great partnerships statewide. Argonaut here in town. I mentioned the Freshwater Institute, a really great partnership down in Cincinnati right now. So, I just want to stress, these jobs often can't be exported out. Keep that in mind. If you're going to go work for Kyle's not going to go work for Kyle. You're not going to be able to pick up the Northeast Ohio Regional or Alex with Cleveland Water and the incredible Cleveland Water System. Those are fixed assets, and we're building upon them. So we need workers in this sector. These are good paying jobs. You're going to happily raise a family on. So that's my takeaway of this is a great sector to be in. It may not sound like the sexiest, but the long term, it will be the sexiest.
Right. And as someone who has been and continues to be in the water industry, I've been in the water industry for more than 40 years. So I think once you're in. You're in the pool and you're not getting out. So anyway, I encourage everyone who's early career, and no matter what you're hearing about AI and all of that, they're not going to replace you. They're not going to replace you. So anyway, all right. So Brian, thank you very much. And it has been a great conversation. And I truly appreciate not only everything that you said, but your leadership of the Cleveland Water Alliance. So thank you. Okay. All right, so now, let me see here. We're gonna transition to the audience Q&A. And so we welcome questions from everyone here in the room, or again, if you need to text in some questions, it's 330-541-5794. So, okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
So, Brian, first of all, hello, and congratulations on the success of your endeavor. I remember when it was first stood up, and I thought, well, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
And you and your team have done a fabulous job of building it. My question is, as I travel around the Great Lakes attending conferences, every Great Lakes city I see has an equivalent idea. And so you mentioned the $1.8 billion in the overall economy. How much of that is coming through Cleveland, and how much do we want to come through Cleveland, and how do you set yourself apart from all the other cities that have similar initiatives?
No, thank you, and it's good to see you. Yeah, I hit on this a bit in the talk, and that's our test beds. This is globally unique, for our team. Max just spoke at Singapore. What did he speak on? Our test beds. A few months ago, I spoke in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia at the insistence of the Saudi Water Authority. What they want to learn about? Our test beds. This is a unique thing. So while we love our partners here regionally, and again, great partnerships, and I'll give another shout out to our NSF partners, Current and Renew. They're the ones who captured this 160 million, but thankfully we get a nice little chunk of that. But it's this ability to test and trial, one. Two, I think our ecosystem, our universities, I think our play with other aspects of this. I see Tom that, was with the Lake Carriers Association for years. We're strongly supported. We just put in a new grant with NOAA and, Interlake Steamship and the Lake Carriers Association. Like, how can we help? How can we support? I don't think the other efforts in other cities have quite this kind of community, business, university impact. And again, though, the Smart Lake Erie watershed, it's a global beacon. It's a global destination. The test beds, I got people flying in from, well, we've had some friends of Sally who we trialed with from Singapore, Zwick, rapid detection of cyanotoxin in harmful algal blooms. And that just reminds me of, we always think through this lens of our problems here are not unique, but our ability to solve them is. And if we can solve them here, we can export those solutions globally and return that economic impact to Cleveland. And to the last part of your question, I want it all.
Yeah.
I want it all. We aim high. We're just not trying to get by.
Brian, great talk. 2 questions. Can you talk more about the structure of the Cleveland Water Alliance and then particularly the Freshwater Innovation Fund and how that fits in? So a little bit more on that. And then my real question is, can you talk more about and help folks understand the real difference between real-time data and back in the lab data and what that means for us as users of water resources to have that real-time experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So to the question of structure, we are a nonprofit 501c3, but we were founded by the cluster component. So that includes Northeast Ohio Regional. When Chach was running it, he was, just such a fascinating human to me, because literally when I was interviewing, I remember he grabbed me by the lapel and he's like, "You have to help us innovate." And I'm like, who is this guy? Yeah, it's gotten to know Chach so well, and he has been a true champion of the community. But that structure is, the fact that the majority of our funding comes from either the federal government, the state government, but thankfully for a lot of these founding partners, Northeast Ohio Regional, Cleveland Water, Case Western, and then our companies here locally have been foundational in this. I know Odie Company is here and has a table. When Blake returned from his, kind of educational and business journey, he was one of the first kind of probably outside of the Odie Company calls he made, saying like, "What are you doing here? This looks really interesting." So that structure is, one where we have a board of directors. We have a tremendous amount of transparency. We're just finishing up our annual audit. We've always passed our audits. We take it very serious that we take public dollars. Something our board chair, Kirsten from the Great Lakes Science Center, really drilled into me of just like, as we were growing, there's going to be more eyeballs on us. And if there's going to be more eyeballs on us, we better do it right. So we take it to the point where we think, and this also speaks to the other question, our finances are a competitive advantage, because when we're going after competitive grants, there's not going to be any questions like, why did, you log this expense as that? It's all out there in the open. By the way, Sam and our team just issued our impact report, so it's available online as of this morning. The fund is a $25 million investment fund that I'm raising dollars for now. It's open to any LPs, limited partners, as well as foundations. I've got 2 major foundations that are putting what's called program-related investments into this, which is a rare thing in the foundation world, and I think it really signifies how much belief and strength they have in us. What was the second question?
Real time.
Yeah, for us, real-time data is everything, but it's also data you need to be careful with. I'm going to use Cleveland Water as the example. So Cleveland Water now, under their intakes, they know that water quality in real time or near real time. It was so fun today that some of Alex's plant managers and water managers were suddenly like, why are you spending all your time on your phone? Well, it's because we were streaming that data to them in real time. So let me give you really cool example that Alex has, I'll give him credit for, and that is when they have issues of hypoxia, oxygen-starved water, traditionally they're like, I don't know, we may be getting that, we may not. Hits their water intake, and at that point it's too late. Suddenly they've got issues around color, taste, odor, and they need to be prepared for, the chemical treatment of it, and almost the bigger expense was workforce to treat it. So imagine having this real-time water quality data where you may know 2 to 3 days in advance that it's highly likely that you're going to have a hypoxic event. Suddenly, Alex and his team can be like, do we have the right workers in at the right time? We're no longer paying people triple time because we're running with our tails, crossed between our legs. And suddenly we have the right chemical and treatments in-house in time. So it creates this better management of activities. But of course, also, I think it gives all of us better confidence in our water quality data. As people who live here, people who touch water, people who drink the water, it gives branding confidence, but it gives health confidence.
How do you plan to make the resources that we have here for water research available for the rest of the world if you want to take advantage of this economic chance that you have?
Didn't quite understand that.
How do you plan to export the resources that we have here to the rest of the world like you want to do?
Yeah. So it starts with our test beds and the fact that we already have all of these researchers globally coming to us. It starts with some really exciting research where, we make some of our data available to them. But the big goal, the ultimate goal here is the solutions. And we are speaking left and right to all of our core partners and players globally when we have a solution. So let's take probably the best in class in Europe, and that's the Water Alliance in Leeuwarden outside of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I mean, the Netherlands, they got their act together. They've always been, to me, between them and Singapore, best in class. But both Singapore and the Water Alliance in the Netherlands and the WETSIS campus there, they're coming to us saying, what are you working on? We share with them on a regular basis what's keeping you up at night and what you have in the pipeline. So it's on us to help our companies here, these solutions, to get exported globally. So we've really worked hard to build those partnerships, but also to welcome people coming in. Look, I'm greedy. So, when somebody is maybe working with the Catalan Water Partnership, another strong partner of ours, I'll be like, why don't you just do all your research here, and I'm going to patriate your IP. I'm going to give you office space here in Midtown Cleveland because we have hoteling space. I'm going to get this fund to try to get you an investment in there. And, that Europe, that's an okay market, but this is the market. So we do a lot of that.
Hello. Our next question is a text question. It says, so when you talk about growing this sector of the economy and the need for us to move fast, what can ordinary citizens do to help?
I think it starts with valuing water and understanding the water cycle. Water was I hate to use these terms for generations. It was kind of a throwaway bill and we didn't value it. And then suddenly it's like, Oh, we've never invested in infrastructure. Our systems are failing. We need to pay for that. Oh, there's not a federal grant for that? You mean I have to pay for that? So there's an education component here to say, you know, let's start viewing as a community. Really important. Water is a driver. Again, utilities are economic drivers. All of this innovation and technology are economic drivers. That job creation I talked about, additive manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, biohealth, we're adding more jobs to that. So for people in the community realizing this can be the jobs for their kids, as we talk about, you're not going to export your water job to, you know, somewhere else. So I think it starts with, you know, we've called a variety of things, the value of water, you know, understanding, you know, the importance and role of water. But I think organizations like ours, look, you know, this wasn't an accident as far as this is where I wanted to spend the last 15 years. You know, I saw this, but I also saw how we didn't value water, but I'm like, this could be something really cool and change a community. And I think we're starting to make progress on there. Again, to your point, we're not moving fast enough. We got to move faster. That's always the case. But I need to get people to wake up out of this, you know, and I'll go ahead and say it like, why are we throwing away $1.5 billion to data centers when the average data center hires 6 people? You know, that's not economic development. So for people to understand and look, you know, I want to say I'm not against data centers. They actually don't use that much water. Now the energy for them uses a lot of water, but the direct water, you know, but let's just be smarter. And let's, you know, have the community come together saying like, why aren't we doing more about water? Why aren't we building a stronger water economy? We have this strength, you know, thanks to, you know, Matt Dolan, who will be here tomorrow. He saw this right away, and he's like, I'm going to get you money to help you start building out this test bed. You know, I need more Matts, to be honest.
Do you guys plan on having more programs and leadership ideas for the youth? And if so, will you eventually start visiting schools to make the situation more known?
So the short answer is I'm not sure, just because of capacity. But we have great partners. So again, the Freshwater Institute is a great example of that, where they have a little more capacity for kind of the school component. But that being said, we're working on it. You know, this small project in Cincinnati, because we're statewide, Cleveland's in our name, you know, we're statewide, is working with Thomas More University around training, you know, in this case, college students about, you know, what does it mean to do this monitoring work? You know, I've got to train and teach people, one, to understand water chemistry, but then they need to know how to calibrate a water quality instrument, a sonde. They need to understand how technology and information packets travel to the cloud. They need to, so, you know, the question becomes, again, what are we going to do as a community to probably embrace this water economy? You know, and this is an ongoing topic. I'll speak anywhere, anytime, you know, and our team will speak anywhere, anytime to any school. And we do that. And again, partnerships besides the people I mentioned with Kent State and others. Baldwin Wallace, another good example, the University of Toledo, University of Dayton, Cincinnati, and of course OSU, have to bring them up. But keep in mind, we need help, people. You know, it's, you know, if I say like I have a additive manufacturing training program, it's like, how much do you need? And I'm like, no, slow down here. You know, let me talk to Kyle, let me talk to Alex from Cleveland Water. You know, we always need help because the opportunities are faster, quicker for these jobs.
I just decided to ask a question on my way back to my seat. So, hello, Brian. Actually, I might cheat on 2 questions. The dreaded data centers got dredged up again, and no pun intended, the mayors and managers, we were talking about them this morning. I know it may not be direct your wheelhouse in what you say about water usage relatively low. Ohio EPA and now the new US EPA Region 5 Administrator Ann Vogel's talked about these recirculating systems.
Yeah.
The question I have on that is everybody seems to say that's a good idea, but who's doing the work to actually bring that to market? Because I think we all have a vested interest in that coming to market faster because we know data centers are here because of all the phones we use and every other device. But any thoughts on getting that to market quicker? And then I have another question.
Yeah, so that's what we wake up for. So we've got partnerships with a variety of different data center manufacturers, as well as all the brands that you've heard of. And Chris, this has been the fastest that we're getting to a yes when we have a technology on water reuse, is what you're talking about, in terms of, can we try this? Will you put money into it? We need $1 million to do this. The companies are saying, we'll help accelerate this to market. So that's happening now.
And it would seem we have the companies in our own midst to bring that to market. But
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And I want to make a remark. There was a company here, established here, and the technology's lived, but the company's gone, called Tangent. And it was water recycling. I like to call it toilet to tap for residential and commercial. Ohio was the first state to authorize this sort of water reuse in the union. Ohio, even though you wouldn't think we'd have high use for water reuse because we've got what we have, but no, we do have that technology. So we are working on that.
I know I'm getting the hook, but hats off to all the students that are here from Freshwater Institute, from Argonaut, and from our local colleges and community colleges. That bodes a question. We've had this wonderful crew that studies with us year-long and summer-long. Where do they go next if they were to stay in this region? Do you subscribe to the need for kind of a maritime university, or at least programs within? I know Tri-C's gotten something started, perhaps CSU as well, but it feels like in the Great Lakes, some kind of higher education maritime institution belongs here.
I'm in. Sign me up.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. I don't know how much.
This is a text question. There are dozens of local organizations restoring streams, reducing stormwater impacts, and engaging communities across Northeast Ohio. How can organizations like the Cleveland Water Alliance help better connect these local efforts with regional innovation, investment, and policy so we can achieve greater collective impact?
Yeah, I love that. We have a great solution for that. I'm looking at Stephen Love, who kind of helped us develop what the answer is. So we have something called the Lake Erie Volunteer Science Network. Max, raise your hand. Max from our team runs that. So how many watershed groups do we have as part of it right now? We have 20 watershed groups participating in community-based science. That's no small feat.
Yeah.
We also allow these communities to borrow expensive equipment and train certain people in using this equipment. And this is a great way to get engaged in that kind of watershed level, but also education. But here's my favorite thing about it. We've seen people who are way past retirement, and we've seen 7-year-olds together doing water samples in these watersheds. And how cool is that?
Yeah, thank you for looking at me when you said way past retirement.
Bob, I did not.
Brian, you've done a great job of addressing how the Cleveland Water Alliance addresses water issues here and now. But I'm thinking in terms of global climate change, what will make Cleveland Water Alliance relevant for the foreseeable, even beyond the foreseeable future? What do you foresee as the problems, the new problems that, in terms of water quality, quantity, availability, justice, so on and so forth, what do you foresee, and how is the Cleveland Water Alliance addressing itself to stay in business like forever?
That last part's a trick question. So I think we've already hit on the ingredients that we have here. With climate impacts, we're seeing what's the phrase? Thank you, Kyle. We're definitely seeing impacts, but look, we're seeing an industry that's thirstier than ever. And anybody who's putting a data center, again, let's use the third rail, in Arizona is just, I'm like, what are you thinking? That's just stupid. We actually need a national policy on this, is my opinion. When I look at some of the water stresses globally, it's just people, look, we can do some things like new water, water from air. That's fine for humans, but you can't run an economy on it. So our strength, Bob, is going to be what we have, and that's the Great Lakes. That will always be our strength. So the challenge is making sure we're good stewards of it. And again, some of this work around data, having real living digital twin models so we know the health at all times. Because we also, look, here's what scares me about data centers, folks. It's not the water in, on the water side. It's going to be the water out. It has some nasty stuff in it. And that, again, opportunity for us, but we need to take and pay attention to that because we can't go back to 1969. I refuse to go back to 1969. We built this innovation ecosystem here, so we're ready for it. And, I've talked to County Executive Ronayne and others about this. When a big company comes in here, we want them to be auto-enrolled, mandatory into our testbed program so that, we have an idea of what their problems are and we're bringing solutions to them. We don't find out a year later that they're, doing something that maybe they didn't even know about. So it starts there. Thank you.
Brian Stubbs of the Cleveland Water Alliance, Sally Gutierrez, formerly of the EPA, thank you so much. My name is Dan Moulthrop. I'm the Chief Executive here at the City Club, and I want to remind you that forums like this one are made possible thanks to generous support from individuals like many of you, like all of you really, if you want. You can learn more about how to become a guardian of free speech at cityclub.org. Our forum today is the Stanley and Hope Edelstein Endowed Forum on the Environment. Stanley and Hope were generous models of a deep and abiding commitment to the natural world. We're pleased to be able to remember them today. Thank you so much to their nephew, Brian, for joining us today. Thank you. This is also part of our celebration of America 250 in partnership with the America 250 Ohio Commission, made possible thanks to support from that commission and Bank of America, Cleveland Cliffs, and the Rock family of companies. And it's also part of our Environmental Innovation Series, seriously, environmental innovation, presented by the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, keeping our Great Lakes great. Thanks to all of our sponsors today. We would also like to welcome students joining us from SIAT and the Freshwater Institute, as well as guests at the tables hosted by the America 250 Ohio Commission, Bank of America, BWE, this is going to take a while, so Cap Square Advisors, Cleveland Water Alliance, Cleveland Cliffs, Cuyahoga County Community College, Freshwater Institute, Friends of Euclid Creek, the Great Lakes Science Center, Macaulay and Company, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, Odie Company, Ohio Marine Trades Association, Renew, the Rock family of companies, and the Washkowitz College of Engineering at Cleveland State University. Thank you all so much. Please do not come to the City Club next Friday. We're closed in recognition of in observance of Independence Day on Friday, which is going to be on July 4th, of course. But we will return Friday, July 10th to hear more about the future of AI-powered surveillance here in Cleveland, greater Cleveland, and around the nation. We're talking specifically about flock cameras, but also the broader issues represented by those. Signal Cleveland's Nick Costell will lead a conversation with Joshua Thomas, the Chief Communications Officer of Flock Safety, and Dr. Jen Golbeck, computer scientist and AI ethics and privacy expert at the University of Maryland. Also, you're all invited to join us Wednesdays at noon across the street on the plaza here at Playhouse Square. Free forums. You bring the lunch and we bring the conversation. Except for the first one, in which you all will bring the conversation. It's kind of an open mic. So consider joining us for that, please. Thanks once again to Brian Stubbs and Sally Gutierrez. Thanks to all of you for being with us today and to our members and donors for making this possible. Our forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.